Good morning. I'm Julia Hardy and we are coming to you live from BAFTA HQ here in London for the BAFTA Games nominations. Now, your eyes do not deceive you. It is indeed that time of year again when the BAFTA Games Awards, the global showcase of the very best of games, celebrates the super talented people who created them. For those that don't know, BAFTA has been celebrating the best of games artistry for the past 15 years with its peer-voted awards, and as well as an international events programme supporting those who are starting out in the industry. We'll be very shortly revealing the nominations for this year's awards, which will be held at the Queen Elizabeth Hall in London on April the 4th, hosted by the wonderful Dara O'Brien and watchable live on all good social media platforms, and none of the bad ones. No. Joining me today to review, deliberate and scrutinise this year's BAFTA nominations are from Eurogamer, a lady who loves her video games as much as she loves her cats, which is an awful lot.
I know, he covered me in hair before I left this morning, so we'll see.
Aoife Wilson. We have games journalist Alicia Judge, who more of a dog person, if you want to know. And from GameSpot, who has two cats.
Two cats, yeah.
This is the important things Timur Hussain.
Yep.
Now, before we dive into the detail of this year's lineup, let's find out who will be in contention for that shiny, albeit very heavy, BAFTA mask. Here are the nominations.
Artistic Achievement. Detroit, Become Human. Greece. God of War. Marvel's Spider-Man. Red Dead Redemption 2. Return of the Obra Dinn. Audio Achievement. Battlefield 5. Detroit, Become Human. God of War. Marvel's Spider-Man. Red Dead Redemption 2. Tetris Effect. British Game. 1111 Memories Retold. Forza Horizon 4. Red Dead Redemption 2. The Room, Old Sins. Overcooked 2. 2 Point Hospital. Debut game. Beat Saber. Cultist Simulator. Donut County. Florence. Greece. Yoku's Island Express. Evolving Game. Destiny 2 Forsaken. Elite Dangerous Beyond. Fortnite. Overwatch. Sea of Thieves. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. Family. Lego Disney Pixar's The Incredibles. Nintendo Labo. Overcooked 2. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. Super Mario Party. Yoku's Island Express. Game Beyond Entertainment. 1111 Memories Retold. Celeste. Florence. Life is Strange 2. My Child Lebensborn. Nintendo Labo. Game Design. Astrobot Rescue Mission. Celeste. God of War. Into the Breach. Minute. Return of the Obra Dinn. Game Innovation. Astrobot Rescue Mission. Celeste. Cultist Simulator. Moss. Nintendo Labo. Return of the Obra Dinn. Mobile game. Alto's Odyssey. Brawl Stars. Donut County. Florence. Reigns, Game of Thrones. The Room, Old Sins. Multiplayer. A Way Out.
Everybody stay calm.
Battlefield 5. Overcooked 2. Sea of Thieves. Super Mario Party. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Music. Celeste. Far Cry 5. Florence. God of War. Greece. Tetris Effect. Narrative. Florence. Frostpunk.
He doesn't know, does
God of War.
about your true nature or his own.
If the other guy's bigger, you gotta be quicker.
Marvel's Spider-Man. Red Dead Redemption 2.
Makes us brothers.
Return of the Obra Dinn.
Let them go!
Original property. Dead Cells. Florence. Into the Breach. Moss. Return of the Obra Dinn. Subnautica.
Catalog new species.
Performer. Christopher Judge.
We are not men. We are more than that.
Danielle Bizzuti.
Have faith in him. I know the truth isn't simple.
Jeremy Davies.
I've spent the last 100 years dreaming of this moment.
Melissanthi Mahout.
All right, Spartan. I'll fight with you. But Diocles is mine.
Roger Clark.
This whole thing is pretty much done. We're more ghosts than people.
Sunny Soljic.
I know I was never what you wanted. But after all this, I thought...
EE Mobile Game of the Year. Brawl Stars. Clash Royale. Fortnite. Old school RuneScape. Pokemon Go. Roblox. Best Game. Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Astrobot Rescue Mission. Celeste. God of War. Red Dead Redemption 2. Return of the Obra Dinn.
Wowza, that is an awful lot of video games to kind of like take in such a short period of time. I mean, God of War, I think, is the maximum of 10 nominations, which isn't a record, because I think we've had 10 before, but it is the kind of top end of the scale. We've got Red Dead, Return of Obra Dinn with 6, and Florence with 6, Celeste with 5. We've got some returns of some BAFTA Breakthrough Brits with Lottie Beavan and Harry Nesbitt, who are both up for BAFTA Breakthrough Brits last year, and are now back with their games, one in Game Innovation, one in Mobile Game category. So it's been, I feel like it's been an exceptionally, obviously we say this every year, but actually it's been an exceptionally good year for games. What are your initial thoughts just off the back of that?
I'm so glad to see Florence get so many nominations. So glad to see, I mean, God of War. Like, I think everyone sort of had an inkling that was going to do quite well.
Did all right.
I'm also really glad to see Marvel's Spider-Man. Spider-Man get nominated for quite a few, just because big comic book nerd. I know you are too. And I think that game did really good things for Spider-Man and Peter Parker. So.
I think it's been a really, really good mix of big blockbuster but high budget games and small ones with God of War and Spider-Man next to, Obra Dinn and Florence and Yoku's Island Express and that kind of stuff. It's a really, really eclectic mix of games that just shows how diverse and how capable developers and designers and people are out there. It's really impressive, and as you said, every year is a strong year, but this year in particular, it feels like there's a good balance of big budget and indie.
It's what BAFTA always does incredibly well, having that balance as well. It's always why it's one of the most fun award shows to watch. Biased, obviously.
Yeah, and I think what's really cool is so much of the headlines this year were dominated with Fortnite and Battle Royale, and rightly so, there's some amazing Battle Royale games out there. But I think these categories show that there's a real heartbeat for story still in the games industry. You look at God of War, Red Dead, Spider-Man, all of these major games last year that prove that narrative is still so important in the games industry.
Yeah. Thank goodness. As a story nerd, that's my thing. Okay, let's kick off. We won't be able to go through all of the categories because there's so many categories. So we pick kind of the hot pick categories. So we're going to kick off first of all with debut game. Yes. So let's just quickly run through. We've got a Beat Saber, Cultist Simulator, Donut County, Florence, Gris, and Yoku's Island Express. I think definitely there's something for me, we talked this before with Donut County. There's something about tidying up. Or I was saying, it's like the Marie Kondo video game. Just chuck it in a hole, get rid of it. If it doesn't spark you joy, shove it down a hole.
Gamers like attrition. We like things to be neat and orderly. These are facts. Look at Tetris.
That raccoon is the Marie Kondo of the video game.
What were kind of some of your faves from debut game?
For me, Florence, for sure. I mean, it's such a short game, but the impact that it leaves on you is just, I mean, I played it for the first time on a train. And it's so short that I was done by the time the journey ended, and I was wiping away tears. I was like, oh my God, it's so affecting, and it does so much with so little, in that it uses a couple of different gameplay mechanics a few times over, but the way it embellishes and evolves those mechanics to tell a story, from meeting someone through to the first pangs of love, through to your first argument, and then eventually breakup, the speech bubble mechanic that it uses.
Oh, that was heartbreaking.
From when you start off, and you're desperate to impress someone, and you're putting together witty little quips in your head, and then it becomes easier over time to talk to them. So the speech bubble, all you have to do is put it in there, and then when it becomes jagged, as your relationship starts to dissolve,
the arguments.
My God, and things a sort of when you move in with someone and you're trying to all your possessions get jumbled up together, and then trying to sort those out when you move out.
All the feels. feels.
Because everyone can sort of relate to that, you know, and like to cram in so many universal moments in such a tiny little game with such beautiful music as well.
Beautiful art as well, and characters that are so relatable. I mean, Florence is definitely my pick as well, but there's a lot of other games in the category that's, like we talked about Donut County, and it's just an incredibly charming game.
It's very Katamari-esque, which I liked.
Almost in reverse.
It's a labor of love that from you know, Ben Esposito, and like how charming it is. Like even though you finish it, you keep coming back to it, and the music, the characterization, it does the kind of internet speak humor and manages to do it really well. It's got like really memorable characters, but on top of that, like Yoku's Island is an incredibly impressive platformer. Very few people can do platformers super well. They take an idea and, you know, reinvent platformers slightly, and it's a really fun game.
Mine was, I think I really enjoyed Beat Saber.
Yes.
It was the first time I think I was doing VR in my house, and I like got a towel.
It's a full body workout.
I became acutely aware that I had floor to ceiling windows, and I look out on a main road, because after about 2 hours I was like, oh my God, I'm like this nerd who's been playing VR for ages.
You have to pop a squat basically for the entire thing. Your quads are burning by the end.
It's the perfect mix of VR and motion controls, just married together in this. It's so well designed.
What's your kind of favourite from that category?
I really, really liked Gris. I just think there are certain games, like Monument Valley was one of them a few years ago, where you could just take any screenshot of the game and put it up on your wall, and it would be the most incredible art. And I feel like Gris is exactly that. And it's interesting because it kind of snuck in at the end of last year. It launched on December the 18th, so at the point where everyone else is kind of like thinking about end of the year roundups. And it was so stunning. It's the story of a girl trying to put colour back into a colourless world, which you kind of can't really imagine what that looks like, and then just go check out screenshots and video gameplay of it. Is stunning.
All right, well, let's move on to our next category, which is Game Beyond Entertainment. So this is obviously a game that kind of, you know, is aiming to create and, you know, change the world, outside the actual physical game itself and into the real world. So let's have a quick look down the list. So we've got 11 Memories Retold, Celeste, Florence, Life is Strange 2, My Child Lebensborn, and Nintendo Labo.
Nintendo Labo seems like such an outlier there, but when you think about it, it did push the boundaries of what games can do.
I mean, they're putting out a cardboard VR headset now. It's really like it's Nintendo doing a thing that they, you know, peering into what children and adults even like love, as the idea of craft and putting something together and taking these like pieces and then 4 or 5 hours later having a piano and being like, I don't know how I got to this
playing the Game of Thrones theme tune.
Exactly.
And the purity and the wholesomeness of that.
The magic of it, like seeing like kids come together and like figure it out, and I've seen like nephews and playing it and like discovering a love of craft through Labo, and that's
just don't really make things anymore, especially like as a family. Like when do you sit down and actually like build anything?
But it's genuinely genius, like how it uses like the existing tech of motion controllers and Joy-Cons and stuff, and actually like builds a working piano out of cardboard.
And I think one of the reasons why it's in Games Beyond Entertainment isn't just for all of that amazing physical play, but it teaches you about programming and coding. There's a whole extra section where, you know, you can go in and learn basic kind of game design. And then also, like, it's got a wonderful section where it explains physically how things have come together and been constructed. So you're also learning engineering. So it's like super educational as well as fun.
So kind of what were other people's top picks from the category?
So I have to get behind Life is Strange 2.
You do like that.
I mean, it's like, and I think Life is Strange 2, I think a lot of people, I mean, obviously, it's not even finished yet. We've only had 2 episodes. This is only being judged on the very first episode. But like, I hope people aren't sleeping on it, because obviously this new series doesn't involve Max and Chloe, who were, you know, such beloved characters because they were so brilliant in the first series. This is 2 completely new characters, brothers, Daniel and Sean Diaz, on the run from the police. And I really have to give props to Don't Nod, because they could have, and people almost wanted them to, make the exact same game again. But they've almost purposefully done the exact opposite of everything that they did in the first series. They wanted to do something completely different, and they're doing that, and they're still telling a really compelling story.
And they're exploring different kind of concepts and problems with youth culture. If the first one, you know, looked at kind of relationships between two young girls and kind of like, you know, drugs and all of this kind of stuff. The first one, you know, it's looking at politics. It's dealing with politics
I mean,
in games.
like, what a mission statement in the very first 20 minutes. Like, it goes there. Like, it really does go there. And I'm always fascinated to see where the story takes us.
How are you, Timur?
Celeste, I have to give it to Celeste. I really, really love that game. And it's a game that it's taken me some time to realize that I really love it, because it's kind of...
It's very intense at the moment. You don't really have time to think about anything.
Yeah, and it kind of unravels what it is about, really, very, very slowly. You know, the idea of mental health, anxiety, and fighting through that and dealing with that, and the way it's so intrinsically linked to the mechanics of the game, the idea of failure and the idea of frustration and pushing through and not really seeing what it's all about until you reach the very end of it. And that's something that when I talk to people who don't like it, they're like, it's just a platformer, you don't get it. But
does that mean it succeeds in what it tries to do?
I think it succeeds exceptionally well, because it's hard to relate that struggle to someone else who just doesn't see it. Like, to them, you tell them, no, it's about this, this, and this, and this. This is what I'm feeling, and they're like, well, I don't see that, and that's because
like, it doesn't matter what you see.
don't. Yeah, you don't see. This is what I'm taking out of it.
It's so intensely personal.
And like to make that game after Towerfall, which is just so completely and a game that I
love
also
it when they
adore.
completely like
yeah,
change
like
things.
that studio is just incredible, and I'm excited to see where they go, and I think Celeste is an incredible game.
I really love the humour in it as well. It had really great wit and writing, which actually brings me to a game called My Child Lebensborn, which is nominated in this category. Is such a cleverly written game, because it's the story of you adopt a young child and you're living in Norway post-World War II, and the child is the daughter or the son of a German soldier. And it's really tough, because you experience racism. Like, you know, the local town post World War II. You know, this is a true story of a lot of the children of Lebensborn were ostracized, bullied, had incredible mental health issues from a childhood of people saying to them, like, your father was, you know, and so you have to look after them, and love becomes sort of like a mechanic, which we never really see in games.
No.
Like.
Yeah.
It's tough, where you're having to balance kind of getting them the right food, kind of getting them off to school, making sure they're washed, also making sure that all of this bullying isn't going to like actually acutely hurt them.
And this game was made in conjunction with actual historians and War Child, the charity as well, right? So like there is a lot of educational value in it.
I mean, yeah, and that's exactly why it's in that. Exactly why it's in that category. There's some very, very worthy nominees in there. Let's move on. I know we could talk about that.
Yes, definitely.
Quite a long time. So our next kind of discussion category is going to be mobile game and also EE Mobile Game of the Year. So this is there's a slight differentiation between these two categories.
They are quite different.
Yeah. So the EE Mobile Game of the Year is voted for by members of the general public. So it doesn't have to be a game that's been out this year. It's just a game that you can play this year, if that makes sense. But they are all mobile. Okay, let's start off with mobile games. So we've got Alto's Odyssey, Brawl Stars, Donut County. I always want to say country. I can never read county. County's not a word I ever use. Florence, Reigns, Game of Thrones, and The Room, Old Sins. So of course, Alto's Odyssey, one of our previous winners in the EE Breakthrough Brits. Harry, yep. So what's everyone been playing on their phones this year? Which one's the one that they went back to time and time again?
Well, Donut County, I think purely because first time I heard of it was after the Game Jam, that it was such an interesting origin story.
So weird.
There was like a Game Jam where they were like, make a game from
the Twitter parody account. It's Peter Molyneux, right?
Molyneux, it's the, so kind of tweeting out fake tweets for game pitch concepts. And this tweet was, you play a hole, you must move around an environment making certain targets fall into correct targets at the right time. And they took that single tweet and went, let's make a game.
I love that.
Let's actually make it.
But sometimes actually when you creatively, when you have like a really like limited like area to move in, like a very like linear construct, suddenly actually it opens up creativity in such a. So if I said to you now, right, make a game, you're like,
what?
Okay, I can make about anything, and it's almost too much choice. And sometimes when you kind of like really limit it down,
and then it becomes like it almost like arrives fully formed, and you just have to embellish the fun little details or something.
Exactly. So Timur, how about you? What were you playing?
Florence keeps coming up,
Yeah,
and I keep wanting to mention it because it's a game I absolutely adore. I know you've talked about it at length and pretty much nailed what it is, but like how well it kind of represents, you know, falling in love, being in love, falling out of love.
You guys have got so many feels. And
and just the way it kind of is. I think I can't remember how long it is. It's like an hour or so.
It's very short.
It's very hour. It's very short, but like it's one of the most impactful games that I've played.
But that's what's so fascinating. So you think about kind of all these big, you know, big studios. You spend like a fortune, and you know, to like make a game, and they want you to come away with like this sort of feeling and this emotional journey that they've taken you on. And actually, you can achieve that with much less.
Yeah,
it is possible.
And Ken Wong, who's the designer on it, he worked at us too on Monument Valley, and like, I think they were kind of the first people who really stood up amid this kind of environment where we thought that games had to be these huge, long experiences. Monument Valley went, no, like let's make it shorter for mobile. And Ken Wong then went away back to Australia, to Melbourne, founded his own studio and made this. And it's great, it's proving it yet again.
And actually, mobile is a great genre and environment for games to try new things because of that, and because maybe sometimes the stakes are smaller, that people can actually take bigger risks where they couldn't.
And I think as well, what's really interesting about mobile is a lot of people who play mobile games, they're not gamers, you know, like, so Florence, in terms of game mechanics, it's super easy to pick up. You know, if you don't play a lot, you can still really experience an amazing story and complete a game. Because think about it, how many non-gamers ever complete a game and get that satisfaction in their life?
I do want to say that I think Rain's Game of Thrones was a really smart idea. Like, so clever. Like, it was perfect. It was the perfect synergy. Perfect synergy. All right, let's move on to EE Mobile Game of the Year. So this is voted for by the public. So we've got Brawl Stars, Clash Royale, Fortnite, Old School RuneScape, Pokemon Go, and Roblox. I really enjoy playing. I played a lot of Clash Royale, actually. I'm not very good at it, but like I do really enjoy it. Really good fun.
Pretends to be shocked. Fortnite is on there. Like,
that game.
That little known game.
Was there anything that you guys sort of played or enjoyed?
I mean, I love Pokemon Go.
So good.
Love it. You know, it's like it's nice to see that still getting a little bit of attention.
Yeah, and I know we like almost brushed off Fortnite there, and it's.
We shouldn't.
No, I don't mean to.
No, but obviously, like, it's a game that everyone loves and also loves to hate, but like from the perspective of being a mobile game, firstly, it's an incredible achievement to get that game.
Yeah, on mobile.
The way there's a reason it's as popular as it is right now. They're so smart about making sure the game always feels fresh and people feel rewarded, and they have that almost carrot on the stick style gaming that works so well on mobile, and it's free, and it's such a
very
They've done
clever.
Everything right.
They've nailed everything. Clever. Like it's kind of like people forget that this is a comeback story for Epic. It's not. It might be a $1 billion thing right now, but there was a point where it was really touch and go for Epic, and this is what saved them, and they've made every smart decision every time.
But that in itself is almost an anomaly. Do you know what I mean? Like to actually do everything right, because there's always, you know, like 80%, whatever.
But everything led them to being this absolute, you know, huge behemoth.
It's amazing.
Shout out to Roblox as well for being an internet meme.
Right, okay, let's move on to Best British Game. So in this category, we've got 1111 Memories Retold, Forza Horizon 4, that's Forza, in case anyone's wondering, Red Dead Redemption 2, The Room, Old Sins, Overcooked 2, and 2 Point Hospital.
I'm so glad 2 Point Hospital is on this list. It was one of my favourite games of last year, just because it's, you know, I loved the original Theme Hospital back in the day, and like, it's such
Hospital administrator is cheating.
And just, it's so British in its humour. There are puns galore. It's so good. And you know, just this idea of running this hospital in the most questionable way. It's great.
I'm really glad that Overcooked 2 is in there, because like there's no game that I've played in the last, I can't even remember how long, that I've been able to break out at family gatherings or whatever, and everyone just immediately gets it and loves it. Like
and shouts at each other
and screams at each other like throwing
Aoife, have you told me you actually played this with your family?
Yes, I have.
You did, and you were still talking to your family afterwards. I played Monopoly with her, and it's a terrifying ordeal.
Yeah, we stopped speaking for a while after that. No, I absolutely, yeah. I mean,
did you delegate the tasks well?
I became a bit of a monster. I'm definitely a Gordon Ramsay in the digital kitchen. Let's just put it that way.
Your dad's still calling you chef. Even now, he's too afraid to stop.
Just salutes every time I walk in.
Tamor, what about you?
Red Dead Redemption 2. It's like the gorilla in this category. But
it is.
It's just such an incredible. I know it's easy to just not write off, but like not
be
give
like,
too much
oh,
thought. Of course, Rockstar are gonna nail it, but like it's singular in its vision, and it makes decisions that kind of achieve that vision, even to the as what some people would believe, to the detriment of the experience. The idea of controlling the pacing of the game as much as it does, because it really holds it down. But every aspect of that feels like it's leading towards something. And I'm not going to spoil it, but when you get towards the end, you have that payoff where you're like, all those moments where I wanted to rush through something, and they made me talk to a character, they made me spend time and walk me through the camp. They pay off in a moment, and
they absolutely do. You're totally right. And I know people who rushed through that game and didn't do as, because I did all of the stranger missions, all of the side missions, and it was amazing to me that actually feeds into the main story towards the end, and you actually get a lot more out of the main story for taking your time and diligence.
But with games of that kind of size, it suddenly becomes acutely aware how different play styles completely affect like the player experience, and you'll talk to different people, and everyone's had a really different version of the same game. It's very peculiar to feel that way,
But I love Arthur Morgan. I think maybe even more than John Marston, honestly.
Same.
Like, I really think he was a brilliant character.
Sure.
That's my girl.
We were talking about there's a lot of boys this year. Obviously, with God of War, and then Arthur Morgan calling his horse boy. But now we just have to say boy like that from now on. Okay, let's go on to the biggest category that there is, which is best game. Now, let's go through these. I feel like I need to take a deep breath because it has been an exceptional year for games, and I'm sure this was an incredibly difficult category to pick from. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Astrobot Rescue Mission, Celeste, God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, and Return of the Obra Dinn. Now, before you say anything, I'm just going to say the Return of the Obra Dinn. Yes. Oh my goodness!
So, that's what I was going to bring up.
Totally. I thought it was going to be one thing. It was completely something else, and I was like, I'm going to play this for like 5 minutes, and it was like 6 hours later. And incredible.
So literally, this is the reason I love working with BAFTA so much, is because around this time of year, I get to go back and play a lot of the games that I just didn't get around to at the time when they came out. And Obra Dinn was one of them. And I played it just last week. And I started it, and I couldn't leave until the mystery was solved. Like, I was up until 2 in the morning. I was like, it is so good.
It's so clever. It's basically kind of like Batman Arkham Cluedo.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It really is.
But like,
it's impressive how good Lucas Pope is at making data processing and management. So he's done it. Papers, Please, Obra Dinn. Like his games are all just about.
I would have expected.
No.
Yeah, you'd think, because if the game is about an insurance kind of.
Yes. It's administration.
It's administration. Going to a ship to make a log of how much money he needs to give out. The insurance company. That sounds so boring.
It's one of those things that, like, if you suddenly have to, like, doing like a fair bit of radio, sometimes when you have to like verbally explain what a game is out loud, it sounds so boring. Like that, Like, you'd be like, I'm not playing that. That sounds terrible.
But we were talking about it before, and it's genuinely scary in parts.
It's
really scary. It does, like, and it's, I mean, there's barely any, I don't even know if anything moves or anything.
No,
but
it doesn't.
But it is just, you walk into a scene, and it was like, I was shrinking away. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it's that feeling of being something so small and very slowly seeing the picture, a broader picture, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger, and you're like, I was just here to do some insurance checks.
I am out of my depth. It's a great detective game, and the thing that I probably love most about it is that you kind of have to play it with a notebook, like a physical notebook.
But I love that that's so old school gaming where you had to like write down codes, and like you'd find old bits of paper with triangles and squares on it. Like, why is this here? Oh, that game.
I mean, last time I did that was with Her Story a few years ago, and there's something, I remember I had this notebook that was just full of these scribbles and kind of like.
If anyone finds it, they're like, you have gone insane.
Okay?
Yeah, like, it's like the daubings of a serial killer or something. Like, why
Red biro.
I did love the little touch, which is when you go to the menus, you can actually change the screens to match old school different features. I want a Macintosh from 1988. Oh, we've got that. Lovely.
But it's so clever as well, just the fact that like you have to think outside the box. Like it never mentions that maybe you should pay attention to accents or like or like what people are wearing, and it's like I don't know. It's just it does feel genuinely challenging.
It makes you feel like you're really clever.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and that's what we all want. We either want to feel like we're super overpowered, like badass, which is the correct term for it, or really clever. Why don't we just head up the list? Let's go to Red Dead Redemption 2. So, what's everyone's kind of thoughts and feelings? What do we think? Do we think that's going to be potential candidate for best game? Do you think it's possible it could win?
Yeah,
definitely. It is like just.
It's absolutely like, you know, that is the game that last year so many developers were worried about. Like, you know, people didn't want to come out at the same time as Red Dead because it's
or for 2 months afterwards because people are still going to be playing it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, everyone knew it was going to dominate the landscape, and it is a phenomenally designed game.
Yeah.
Like, it's the level of detail. I was crouching outside a little hut, and there was like these two NPCs like having a conversation inside, and I just ended up staying and just listening to this whole conversation. just like a little hermit outside, and it was amazing.
And it's like you said, like I mean, yeah, it's easy to kind of dismiss it. Like very few studios have the scope to do something like as massive as Red Dead, but they always make the best of it. They always do incredible things. And like
a lot of hard work on it.
It's so much hard work. And I mean, even just aside from the story and aside from the performances, which are all incredible, the emergent world I mean, I can't think of anything else like it where you can, like where you don't want to fast travel. You want to travel by horse every time. Like you want to see what's out there.
It's so unusual to have the, because I remember obviously when the first game came out, and I remember I'd played it, and then I went back, I think maybe like a couple of years later, I'd gone back to kind of play it, and I started being really like, I'll get on with it, you know. Yeah. But it's so funny, like games seem to be getting, you know, faster and faster. You know, things like Celeste, where it's like just like boom, quickly, you're like starting again. And then all of a sudden someone's like, hey.
Whoa.
And you're like, all right, like, it's like forced meditation or something.
It wants you to sit by the campfire and tell stories.
Look at those footprints in the snow.
Oh, like we were talking before about his journal as well. Something that's so easily missed.
It's an incredible
but
journal.
the story that tells and the little details that adds to the overall experience. Like most studios wouldn't even think about that, but it's just amazing.
It's just an incredible achievement. Yeah.
And I think as well, like we're kind of inching towards the end of this kind of console cycle, and you know, this is just a testimony, like an ode to the current consoles. It's pushed all the hardware.
Red Dead Redemption was.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, it's the epitome of what you can achieve on this current hardware cycle.
I would say I would raise the visuals to perhaps God of War. That is the shiniest, most glorious thing that's ever hit my eyes in my life.
The thing that oh my gosh, whenever that, like, just when you see that, you're like, okay, that's the kind of scale we're talking about, which is exactly what you want from a God of War game.
Exactly.
But I remember playing the old ones, like, and when you thought about those being rebooted, like they didn't have to be as nuanced and emotional as they were. Like, I mean, they could have made the same sort of thing again, and it would have been just as fun. You know, mashing buttons, destroying big.
See, but I didn't like the older games so much because for that kind of like reason, I was just like, oh, it's kind of quite one note, and like you go and it's quite shouty and like boss fights, blah blah blah.
Totally
but I loved that just because it gave some depth. But it made, but not just for the sake of the game, but it also made complete sense in like where we are in the world right now in terms of like people's kind of, I hate to use that word, but like wokeness, whatever. But like, so having him kind of move on from that character previously made so much more sense and kind of really just sat so well.
And it speaks to like the kind of, it takes, for Cory Barlog, who's, you know, was one of the main writers on it, it speaks to like how well he understood that character and what he always wanted it to be. Because I've spoken to him before, and it was like, this is the trajectory that I always wanted, and the fact that he came back to kind of execute on that, and not just do it in a really simple way. Like that game, it gets a lot of love for its characterization, but just like the cinematics and like the way the one shot camera and that kind of stuff, like it's an amazing, and even the axe, it's such an innovative way to think about combat. It was like a fundamental rethinking of God of War as a franchise. And let's not forget, when it was announced, there was a backlash to it. People were like, you can't do this, it's not going to work. And for that team and for Corey and to really push it, and for Sony to kind of support
themselves, and they challenged everybody
and
else.
they landed it. They could not have landed it more perfectly.
It's a perfect game. Like, it's just so incredible. And like even down to the combat, and I used to really quite dislike the combat in like the other games. I found it so fun. It's so fun.
When you get a proper
like the way, if you look at like the frames of the animation, so every time an axe goes into an enemy, they actually make the axe stay there for a few frames that have him move forward. So there's a sense of an axe being trapped in bone, and like it's so. And the
same with the audio for that as well. It's like slightly delayed.
And like just the animation of the axe coming back and the way he catches it. Like the axe has genuinely become one of my favourite video game weapons of all time, which is amazing considering that the blades were Imagine it was like the Cappy from Super Mario Odyssey. Just put some eyes on it.
Also, Sindri MVP.
And that's just another part. The way it told its story with Sindri and
it worked that into
and with Mimir, for example, the way like he would pause the story and continue telling it, and how he was kind of.
But we'll pick this up later.
And the idea of Kratos being almost you in your kind of like learning about Norse mythology, and then having a character like Mimir be alongside you to kind of explain the intricacies of it. It's like that sense of discovery.
But it's never forced. Normally when they try and put things into games on purpose, it can always, well, not always, but a lot of the time you can kind of feel that clunk. But it just, everything felt really blended. And it made sense. Nothing, like we were saying earlier, like the testament of a good game is when you don't notice things. Like I didn't notice any of those things.
No, because it was just so
seamless.
Because I think they said at the beginning when they were because the boat is central to manoeuvring around that massive world. And I remember seeing an interview with Corey Barlog where he said that initially the boat was a really boring element. Like playtesters were complaining about it, saying like, oh, it's such a chore. But actually introducing the storytelling and learning more about the world, it suddenly turned that, like some of my best memories of playing that game are just learning about like mythology as it goes. It's such a simple thing, but
it completely changes it. All right, we need to move on because we're going to run out of time. I do want to talk about Astrobot Rescue Mission because I don't really like cute things and using a cute mechanic to make me do stuff in a game.
Don't make me feel good.
I want to save them all and then they come into your controller. Anyone else play it and love it?
I loved it.
Not to lead you, but did you love it?
I really, really loved it. I was surprised by it because, I mean, PlayStation VR has been kind of on and off. Sometimes it has some really great games like Tetris Effect, and Astrobot wasn't one that I was keeping an eye on, but I started playing it and it made me, this might be something that people are like, reel back hearing, but like I think it's a Nintendo level quality platformer. It's so good. Like it feels the way a character should feel in a platformer. People struggle with that stuff. Like games like Little Big Planet, which are amazing, but there's an element of the platforming that feels a bit off. But these guys nailed it, and
it makes sense in VR as well, because like for me, I get quite bored with platformers quite easy, but because it's in VR, I'm like, I actually really want to see what it looks like down the other side. So we're gonna have to kind of spin through. We're like got a couple minutes left. So we've talked a lot about Celeste, but what about Assassin's Creed Odyssey? Like real quick before we head off.
I mean, I think there's if you look at the best performer category as well, like
Cassandra is one of my
Cassandra is one of the best characters.
Like, she's incredible, and like just the amount of like detail, like it's just such a huge, dense game. But she was always like just so great. Dealt life as well. I mean, like
like the character. I love the characters in this Assassin's Creed, and like it's a tough one because year on year there's an Assassin's Creed game, but it's so worthy to be here.
But this one, it just felt different as well. Like they were really like sort of just changing things up and doing things differently. And like obviously they started off like sort of making it more RPG focused with Assassin's Creed Origins. But yeah, they've kind of just gone another step with this one.
We've got about 30 seconds left, I think. But here's the thing. I want you to all now tell me what is your best game. What's your best game?
My best game was Celeste. I love the fact that it dealt with mental health and anxiety through actual game mechanics.
Boy.
Boy. I'm just going to call it boy from now on.
Boy. Dad of boy.
Dad of boy. Aoife?
It's too hard.
No, you have to pick. Pick one.
Oh gosh.
Boy.
I'll say Florence, actually. I think it's really interesting what it did, and I'm really glad that it's getting the recognition that it is.
And that's
What's yours?
Mine, it's a toss-up between God of War and Obra Dinn.
Oh, yeah.
Obra Dinn.
Yeah. Just because, my goodness, it's not like, I'm getting quite snobby with games where I'm like, you need to completely reinvent the wheel or I'm not playing it, which is completely unfair.
Or just say boy a lot.
Or just say boy a lot, which is obviously another way that you could get me to play a game. But yeah, that completely changed kind of, I don't know, I was just so surprised by how much I enjoyed it, you know. Anyway, right, we've done enough talking now. It's all up to what's going to happen on the night of the awards. So we have an exciting evening we have in store for you on April the 4th, where BAFTA is going to be showcasing and celebrating the very, very best of the best. And remember, you're going to be able to find us on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Caffeine, and a host of other fine platforms. Join us live on the red carpet from 5:30 p.m. GMT, where we'll be rubbing shoulders with gaming royalty before the ceremony, which will be hosted by the genius that is Mr. Dara O'Brien. For now, though, a huge thank you to my guests, to Alicia Judge, Aoife Wilson and Timur Hussain, and thank you all for watching. Let us know what your favourite games are on Twitter right now. We'll see you soon.